Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and to the millions of folks watching around the world, it's that time again, time for another episode of the House Husband Diaries. And today we are talking themes in the thrill of the chase. And today's theme, trees. It's pretty exciting. See the excitement right here? I am so excited. Trees. Now, so many people have said so many different things about how the treasure chest is either hidden, buried, who knows how it's concealed, what does that hiding spot look like, how it's special to Forrest, what is that? There's a lot of unknown there, and so many of us speculate. But as I've said a number of times through comments and previous videos, I am a poem kind of guy with TTOTC. I will add in the Moby Dickens interview from back in the day. And every now and then I'll add something else. I mean, other Fenn quotes. If he said it, if it's from an interview, I'm fine with that. I mean, I will say this. Capro and Cal are doing that documentary, and I don't really care what you think of those two. But if you look at the footage that he's putting out, when this airs, I will have been on their marathon and done a tax implications, like a little segment on tax implications, and the reason being, if you haven't seen that or whatever, so I have a master's degree in accounting, and I find accounting, I don't want to do it as a profession. I don't mind, like talking to friends and giving friends advice and stuff, not like professional advice, but just kind of like guidance. And they always need to go somewhere and professionally and do whatever. But I enjoy accounting, just having that knowledge and being able to go research some stuff. That I know it's completely dorky, but it's fun to be able to kind of have some background knowledge. And when Capro and Kyle put out that footage of Fenn saying something about subchapter S, I mean, immediately bells were just like, that is IRS code, and so I love spend a couple days researching some of that stuff just because it's fun for me, and so anyway, when you go back to the book, and I think if Forrest didn't say it, then I'm hesitant, very hesitant. And so the book, the poem, and then any of his interviews, if it came from him. And so when I think about how the treasure chest is secluded, hidden, concealed, is it just placed out in tall grass? I like, obviously nobody knows. Nobody has any idea because nobody's found it. But Forrest has said, we'll be surprised where it's found, like where it's hidden, and I don't think it's because it's going to be, 42 feet underground. Like he was old, he's older now, he was old when he did it. Like, I remember my granddad, being 79, 80 years old, and, he ain't digging a hole now, that far. And he's not lifting hundreds of pounds. I mean, my dad is, he's getting up there in his late 60s. You don't want me to tell you that, right? But, he was a football player in college, D1 football player. He's a big dude. Like, I am nowhere near his size. I just didn't get that gene. And, he ain't digging a hole in his 60s, and he's a lot bigger than Forrest ever was. A lot stronger than Forrest ever was. And I don't mean that as a dig towards Forrest at all. I'm saying, just factually speaking, I know the strength of my father when he was, younger, when he was my age, when he was in his 30s. And he, he could have buried some stuff and dug through. And you look at the Rocky Mountains, that's rocky soil too. You just don't find, 30 feet of just like, soft ground to dig through. You try to dig a post, a fence post or something in rocky mountain soil. Yeah, it takes forever. It's so hard. So all of this is to say, when trees are mentioned, I just find it interesting. It's like an aberration out on the edge. And so I want to share that with you. These are the five spots in TTOTC where I've seen reference to trees. There might be more, but these are the ones that I found doing my research. And if you find another one, let me know. If you're tracking with me, let me know. If you're not tracking with me, let me know. Either way, I love the back and forth. So without further ado, the first mention of trees in The Thrill of the Chase is on page 47. The first one that I remember or found. Page 47 in my edition, as always, the 11th printing, and the chapter is The Totem Cafe Caper. And it's right at the bottom of the first paragraph. And he says, he's talking about how it's Canyon Street. It's one of the two mentions that I remember of Canyon, and I'll do a video on that as well. But he's talking about the deep potholes on Canyon Street filled with water, and he thought that they would go by, the cars were going by, and they were seeing who could splash the most dirty water on the most people. And then he says, I used to hide behind a tree and laugh. You think maybe Forrest is subtly saying, maybe that treasure chest is really just right behind a tree. And he's laughing because it's not hidden in some crazy, it's not concealed in any way. It's not buried beneath, tons and tons of soil or rock. Maybe it's just hidden behind a tree. And it's ridiculous that 10 years have gone by and nobody's found it, and he's just laughing. I don't know. Is that subtle? Is that what a subtle hint would look like? Second mention of trees. Next page, page 48. Down towards the bottom. He's talking about, well, I guess it's halfway. He says, one day, during the lull between breakfast and lunch, I apprehended one of her hot pies, tiptoed it out back behind a pine tree, and ate the whole thing. He's behind a tree once again. Why does he keep hiding behind trees? I get it that when you're a kid, when you're not that intelligent, or kids can be smart, but like when your brain's not fully developed, you're like, and you're also tiny, so I guess you physically can hide behind a tree. When you get old and fat, you can't really hide behind a tree anymore, unless it's a real big tree, you know what I mean? Because my belly's gonna show. So I don't know. Two mentions of trees. Behind trees, I thought it was interesting. Third mention of trees in TTOTC. Page 71, chapter is Stout-Hearted Men. He's already run across a field crying. In my previous videos, I mentioned that. So here we are, all these clues, hints, aberrations, themes kind of are tying together. They're connected in all of these stories. It's interesting to me. Last paragraph right above the picture. The little country farm to market roads in that area were short and had many intersections, and it wasn't easy catching a ride in the direction I needed to go. So that night I slept under a tree with cows grazing all around. Cows grazing all around. Cow Lazars. Maybe Mike knows something. The other thing I think is interesting is he says you've never I think I have it in another video. If not, it'll be in another video. I'm sure I'll mention it multiple times. But he says you've never. Actually, it's not in. I don't think it's in another video. It's coming up. But he says you've never loved until you've loved a cow or something like that. When he's milking Bessie. And then at the end of that paragraph, the end of that Stout-Hearted Men chapter, he says, it was a threshold moment in my life, but I didn't know it at the time. So the first two mentions of trees, he's out behind, he's hidden behind a tree. And he says, hid behind a tree, hide behind a tree. And then he tiptoed out back behind a tree. And then after he's run across a field, to avoid detection, crying, now he's sleeping under a tree. So if you've hidden a treasure chest behind a tree, it's still technically under a tree. It's not buried, it's just under the tree. Okay. Fourth mention. Oh, let me go back to. And then he just says it's a threshold moment in his life. He didn't know it at the time, but what does that mean to you? Threshold moment. It's a pretty important moment. Sleeping under a tree, or is it leaving? Is it leaving Texas A&M? I don't know. I'm just here to report the facts, folks. Page 102, fourth mention of trees that I found. Down towards the bottom, last full paragraph. The grass sees and the trees and rushing waters of the spring creek also see. Now, there's some context at the end of My War for Me here that he's talking about the importance of life and other things, and I'm sure I'll cover that in other future videos. But the trees see. The trees see the beauty. The trees are seeing something. I could be way out in left field. I know that. But it's interesting. You gotta admit it's interesting. Trees have never been so interesting, have they? Nope. Never cared about trees until now. Page 121 is the last mention that I found of trees, of the fifth mention. Where are we? Chapter is Fly Water. Down at the bottom, it goes over, you have to skip 2 pages to page 124 to finish this sentence. And I like this one. More themes all crammed into one sentence. He says, but as I got older, wisdom, if you've been wise and found the blaze, but as I got older, I realized there were many moments to remember. That's wisdom. Like the time I sat under a tree on the Madison River and watched the osprey dive for a fish, or for fish, as I wrote a note for my wife, who always allowed me the luxury of doing the things I thought were important. As he wrote a note to his wife, or for his wife, what do you think? The 5 mentions of trees in The Thrill of the Chase. Do you think trees have anything to do with it? Do you think it's hidden behind a tree, under a tree? I've talked about, maybe it's inside a hollowed out tree. It's worth the cold. Be brave. In the wood. I guess technically I could put in the wood, right? The poem as another mention. Wood. Let me flip over to the poem, right? If you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. I was just scanning to see if there was any other mention, but I don't think there's any other mention of specifically of wood. Just no paddle up your creek, all those other things, and yeah, so I guess I could say wood. So what do you think about trees? What do you think about how the chest may be hidden? Could it be just placed out there in the tall grass behind a tree, under a tree, and then you just have to look and the blaze is on a tree? Is the blaze on a tree? I mean, that's a whole nother question. And nobody knows the answer to that, which is why I haven't done a video on that type of scenario, because nobody knows, so it's just sort of putting out there. What I'm trying to do in these videos is just say, hey, these are themes that I see recurring in the book. And I don't know if they mean anything to you. I don't know if you've seen these recurring themes and thought, hey, that's an aberration that lives somewhere out on the edge. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just being too imaginative, but I doubt it. I think Forrest is really, really imaginative and really intelligent, and he plays a fool in the book, like he gets terrible grades and he couldn't make it in college and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't. I think that's just part of him messing around and having a good time with life. So this is the end. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for subscribing. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying the community. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next episode of The House Husband.